The Little Prince, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. A guided reading in English for beginners. Don't forget to share, like, and comment. Chapter 1. My first drawing. When I was 6 years old, I saw a picture in a book. It showed a giant snake swallowing an animal whole. The book said that after eating, the snake sleeps for 6 months. I drew my first picture, a snake from the outside, with something inside its stomach. When I showed it to grown-ups, they said, "Why would a hat scare us?" But it was not a hat, it was a snake with an elephant inside. So I made another drawing showing the inside of the snake. The grown-ups told me to stop drawing and learn serious things like math and geography. From that day, I stopped drawing. But whenever I meet someone who seems wise, I show them my picture. If they say, "It's a hat," I know they cannot understand me. Chapter 2. Meeting the Little Prince. I lived alone for a long time, until one day, my plane broke down in the Sahara Desert. I had only enough water to last 8 days. I tried to repair my engine all by myself. On the first night, I slept on the sand, far away from any people. You can imagine my surprise when, at sunrise, I heard a small voice say, "Please, draw me a sheep." I jumped to my feet and looked around. There was a little boy standing there. He was very small, with golden hair, and he looked at me calmly. He didn't seem lost or tired, as you would expect in the desert. When I asked who he was, he simply repeated, "Please, draw me a sheep." I had never drawn anything except my boa constrictor. So I drew one for him. He looked at it and said, "No, this one is too sick." "Draw another." I drew again. "No, this one is too old. I want a sheep that will live a long time." Finally, I quickly drew a small box and said, "This is a box. The sheep you want is inside it." His face lit up with joy. That's exactly what I wanted. Chapter 3. Where are you from? When I met the little prince for the first time, I was surprised by how curious he was. He asked me many questions, but never seemed to hear mine. It was slowly, little by little, that I learned things about him. For example, when he first saw my airplane, he asked, "What is that thing?" "That's my plane," I said. "It flies in the sky." "How strange," he said. "You mean you fell from the sky?" "Yes," I said proudly. "Oh, that's funny." He laughed. And then he asked, "Which planet are you from?" I was shocked. "Planet?" I asked. But he didn't answer. Instead, he kept looking at my plane and then said softly, "You can't have come from very far away." From that moment, I began to understand. The little prince was not from Earth. Chapter 4. The Secret of Asteroid B612. The little prince slowly told me more about his home. He said that his planet was very, very small. So small, that he could see the sunset many times a day, just by moving his chair a little. Then I learned something important. The little prince's planet had a name. It was called Asteroid B-612. Long ago, in 1909, a Turkish astronomer had discovered this asteroid. He showed his discovery to the world. But because he wore strange clothes, nobody believed him. Years later, he showed his discovery again, this time wearing a suit. Then everyone clapped and accepted it. And so, people on Earth finally knew that asteroid B612 was real. But for me, the important thing was not the number or the name. What mattered most was the little prince himself, and the story of his life. Chapter 5. The Baobabs. Every day, the little prince had a very important job. He had to clean and take care of his planet. There were small good plants, like roses. But there were also dangerous plants, called baobabs. When baobabs were very small, they looked just like normal little bushes. But if you let them grow, they became huge. Their roots could break the planet into pieces. So, the little prince always pulled out the baobabs when they were still tiny. He told me, "Children must learn early about discipline. If you take care of small problems every day, they never become big problems." He spoke with such seriousness that I understood. On his little planet, pulling out the baobabs was like a daily duty. Just as brushing teeth is for us. If he ever forgot, the baobabs would destroy his world. Chapter 6 Watching the Sunsets. One day, the little prince told me something new. He said, "I love sunsets very much. Let's go and see one now. But on Earth, we have to wait for the right time to see the sunset." I told him, "We must wait until the sun goes down." The little prince was surprised. He said, "On my planet, I can see the sunset whenever I want. All I have to do is move my chair a little. My planet is so small that in one day I can watch the sun set many times." Then he added softly, "One day, I watched the sunset 44 times. And after a silence, he whispered, "You know, when you are very sad, sunsets are beautiful." Chapter 7 The Secret of the Flower. Day by day, I was learning more about the little prince's life. Slowly, his story was revealed to me, as if by accident, through little words he spoke. One morning, he started talking about a flower. It was clear that this flower was very special to him. On his small planet, there had always been simple flowers, small ones, with little beauty. But one day, a new flower began to grow. First, it came out of the ground as a tiny bud. The little prince watched it closely, waiting for it to open. At last, the flower bloomed. She was unlike any flower he had seen before. She was proud, and her beauty shone brightly. The flower said to the little prince, "Ah, I have just woken up, I am not quite ready. But thank you for waiting for me." The little prince was amazed. He loved her deeply, but the flower was sometimes vain, sometimes demanding. She wanted attention, and she would speak in a way that hurt the little prince's heart. He did not understand then, but later, he would realize how much he truly loved that flower. Chapter 8 And the little prince leaves his planet. The little prince began to feel unhappy on his planet. He loved his rose, but she confused him with her vanity and pride. He did not yet understand her true feelings. So one morning, he decided to clean his little planet carefully. He swept out the volcanoes, pulled out the dangerous baobab shoots, and gave his rose fresh air under her glass dome. Before leaving, he said goodbye to the rose. She felt shy and only said, "Forgive me, I was foolish. Be happy." The little prince was touched. He realized she loved him, but it was hard for her to show it. Still, with a heavy heart, he left his planet to travel and discover other worlds. It was the beginning of his great journey among the stars. Chapter 9 The little prince visits the king. The little prince landed on the first small planet. There he found a king sitting on a throne, wearing a grand purple robe and a golden crown. The king was happy to finally have a subject. He said, "Ah, here is someone I can rule over." The little prince was surprised. His planet was so small. Whom could the king really rule? The king explained that he ruled over everything: the stars, the sun, the planets, even the birds. But he was a wise king. He only gave orders that could be obeyed. For example, he said, "I can command the sun to set, but I must wait until the right time." The little prince admired the king's sense of duty. But he did not want to stay long. He wanted friends, not orders. So the king told him, "Go, but return one day. You will be my ambassador." The little prince smiled and left to visit the next planet. Chapter 10 The Vain Man. The little prince left the planet of the king and came to the next one. On this tiny planet lived a very vain man. As soon as the little prince arrived, the vain man shouted, "Ah, look, another admirer has come to see me." The little prince was confused. "What do you mean by admirer?" he asked. The vain man explained, "Admirer means someone who claps for me, praises me, and says I am the most handsome, the richest, and the most intelligent man in the whole universe." The little prince thought, "But this man is all alone on his planet. Who will admire him except me?" Still, out of politeness, the little prince clapped his hands. The vain man bowed and said proudly, "See, I am admired by everyone." The little prince was amused, but also a little sad. He whispered to himself, "Grown-ups are very strange." And then he left the vain man's planet. Chapter 11 The Drunkard. The little prince then reached another small planet. On it lived a man who was always drinking. The little prince looked at him with curiosity and asked, "Why are you drinking?" The drunkard replied sadly, "I am drinking to forget." The little prince asked gently, "To forget what?" The drunkard answered, "To forget that I am ashamed." The little prince felt pity for him and asked, "Ashamed of what?" The drunkard replied with a heavy voice, "Ashamed of drinking." The little prince was silent. He did not know what to say. He sighed and thought to himself, "This is truly a strange grown-up." And with a heavy heart, he left the drunkard's planet. Chapter 12. The Businessman. The little prince came to the next planet. Here lived a very busy man. He didn't even look up when the little prince arrived. The man kept counting numbers. 3 and 2 make 5. 5 and 7 make 12. 12 and 3 make 15. The little prince asked, "Good morning, sir. What are you doing?" The businessman replied without stopping, "I am very busy. I am counting the stars." The little prince was surprised. "Counting the stars? What do you do with them?" The man said proudly, "I own them. They belong to me because I was the first to think of it." The little prince frowned. "But you cannot own the stars. You don't do anything for them. You don't water them or care for them. You just sit here and count." The businessman replied, "That is enough. I am a serious person. I own the stars and that makes me rich." The little prince thought quietly, "Grown-ups are so strange. Owning the stars is not useful at all." And he left the planet, feeling sad about how adults waste their lives. Next part coming soon. The mystery gets deeper, don't miss it.